And then I'm going to say that welcome to the ABCs of BCC. And I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves and tell you a few things about about them. And we will start with Devlin Orlin.
Hi, everyone. So thank you, Ms. Winik. We are super happy to be here. I am the school-wide SGA president, as she mentioned. I also am the captain and president of Mock Trial and Model UN and the head of costumes. So anything about any of those things, I'd be happy to talk about. I also edit the feature section of the Tatler, so fun school newspaper things. We are super excited to have you all here and to just hear about your questions about clubs or any sort of activities at BCC. So I will pass, I guess we can go in like grade level order. So I will pass it over to Gabriel Scheck, who is also a senior.
Hi, my name is Gabriel. I'm a senior in the IB program at BCC. I'm also the captain of the Ultimate Frisbee team and a member of the Environmental Service and Science Club, if anybody's interested in those areas. And I think Laila is next.
Hi, my name is Laila Nickelson. I am the school-wide liaison for SGA, and I also play soccer for BCC and run track and field, and I'm also part of Tatler with Devlin. So if you have any sports-related questions.
Okay, I see Thomas there.
Hello, I'm Thomas. I'm a junior in IB at BCC. I play lacrosse as well as am a founder of the Be Ready Club at BCC.
I guess I can hop in here. Hey guys, I'm Sophie Messinger. I'm the BCC School-Wide Community Outreach Director. I'm also the NCR SGA Southern Regional Liaison for the County SGA. And I play tennis for BCC, and I do mock trial with Devlin and Julia.
I guess I can go next. Hi, I'm Julia. I'm a junior. I do AP classes, so I don't do IB. I am also a member of Mock Trial with Devlin and Sophie, and a member of Youth for Equity with Neha.
Hi, I'll go next. I'm Neha. I'm co-founder of Youth for Equity, a racial advocacy group. I am Minority Scholars Program Vice President. I'm on the leadership board for BCC Democrats. I'm on Palms and Spring Track. Yeah.
All right, I'm Connor. I'm a sophomore. I was the freshman class SGA treasurer for my grade. I do professional bowling and cycling.
Hi, I'm Shanayla. I'm on Minority Scholars Program, Asian Student Union, and BCC Moves. I'm a sophomore.
Okay, fantastic. I think we got everybody. So I'm going to kick it off with a couple of the questions that we have gotten in, and then I have also heard from parents and students. And you all can just chime in. You don't need to answer every question, but if you have something relevant, you can talk about it. So actually, I'd like to start with clubs and sports and friends. So we've gotten a lot of questions about clubs. Everybody is kind of curious, especially if you're a ninth grader. It seems like the way to meet people and to get involved. And obviously there are virtual clubs. So how do you join clubs? How do you know which clubs to join and might be a good fit? And any other advice you can offer on clubs?
I can start with this one just from like an SGA organizing club standpoint too. So anyone is welcome to register a club, and that's like super open. I think a lot of people like begin clubs, or if there's something you're interested in that you don't see at BCC, like that's totally great. But we have a huge range of clubs. I know there's like the pre-med club to like the anime club and the baking and the hiking club. They're just like a ton of different things. And we had the first Friday, we had like the club preview slideshow. So that was just sort of like one slide per club. If you guys saw like sort of just like a taste of different clubs. But then next Friday, we'll also have the club fair. So that will be sort of a more full-blown like I don't even know, a full-blown sort of fair to show us what different clubs are at BCC and how you can join. I think that there's really a lot of people might join a club that like with their friends, or even join a club to meet new people. I think either way, there's really a lot of chances to see the different sides of BCC, because a lot of the different clubs, you can meet a lot of people in other grades. And I think those are just a great opportunity to start a new club or to be able to meet other people. So does anyone else want to share about clubs?
Piggybacking off of Devlin, I just wanted to say that you don't need to limit yourself to one club or two. You can sign up for as many as you want now and figure out really what your interests are and who and where you find your people. And from there, you can try to plan out your club schedule.
Yeah, and also there's a lot of different clubs at BCC, like Devlin was saying, and off of that, you can also create your own club, even if you don't see anything than the over 100 at BCC. You can create your own and join with some friends.
And if you're looking for a sponsor, the school-wide SGA also has club coordinators. So if you need help finding a sponsor, we have 2 students that can help with that, and our sponsor, Miss Dean.
I just want to add that you don't have to join a club with friends. Going into a club is a great way to meet new people and form bonds with people from different backgrounds than yourself.
Yeah, I think kind of echoing what Sophie said about just like sign up for whatever interests you, whatever you want in the club fair day, and then kind of from there you narrow it down, you figure out what you're really interested in and like what you feel would be best for you, and like Sophie said, the community that you meet there. So really just like start big and then you can work your way smaller.
Great. Well, the same thing for sports, especially sports is in a virtual world. So what do you recommend for sports? I mean, is it worth it to sign up for virtual sports where, you're not going to be cut, but everything is on Zoom? How important are teams? What do you get out from, are you going to be able to like meet your teammates and sort of form some bonds, and what should you do? What should you do if you're an athlete? What should you do if you're sort of a so-so athlete? What do you all recommend?
I can speak on that. I think that signing up for as many virtual sports as you are interested in would be like the best idea. Even as a freshman, I remember not really understanding the culture around BCC sports or really knowing like how I would feel being around 20 other girls or even like 70 other people on a team, but I really think that the experience, virtual or not, is really worth it. And I think it's a really good way to meet new people within your grade and outside of your grade. And now that we're virtual, I'm signed up for both soccer and cross country for this virtual fall season, because since I'm on track, I'm going to continue some of my workouts in the fall. And so I think that honestly, it's just worth taking as many opportunities as you can to meet new people.
I just wanted to add that I think it being virtual is a great opportunity for people who maybe are not super into athletics to kind of test the waters and sort of start getting into it before like real seasons next year, hopefully.
It's also important to note that the BCC athletics isn't just about going to practice every day and doing the physical workouts or that kind of stuff. It's also a great way you can build a community and find your people, just like in clubs. Because I know that when I was on BCC tennis last year, although we didn't get to play that many matches because Corona happened, we still talk to this day and the team is really close. So I'd say sign up.
And to back off of Sophie, like I'm on BCC Moves, which is a club, but it's dancing and we have a great community and everyone's really close. So
yeah, a lot of the sports teams and the clubs also have group chats and things like that. There are a lot of ways that you connect. It's not simply that you have your club meeting over Zoom or in person, there's a lot of outside connection too that takes place. So it's not like compartmentalized in that way.
Also, I just want to add that you learn a lot of important life lessons on sports. You learn determination, hard work, and your coaches can really become amazing role models as well.
Yeah, it's, you know, the sports, and yeah, you learn about adversity before you have to go through it. Anyway, what advice do you all have? And this is especially true, I think, for the ninth graders and the new students, and new students who are ninth graders who have not been in Montgomery County schools before. What advice do you have for making friends in a virtual world? Like, how are you going to make these connections in clubs or on teams? How's it going for you guys making these connections now?
Well, I personally think that the easiest way to do it would be to make a group chat. I know that through most of my classes, there are group chats with like many students. It ranges from like 4 to 5 students to maybe even 30 students. And I feel like, to me, that's the easiest way, because it's an easy way for you to reach out and not have to talk with your teacher or send an email, and you can just send a text to a classmate. But I think that that's a really easy way. And now that a lot of students have different forms of social media, people make group chats even through like Snapchat and Instagram. And so I think that setting that up at the beginning of class is a really easy way to communicate with your classmates outside of the Zooms and just like build a stronger bond.
I agree with Laila. I think like it's not very easy to get to know people just during like the class setting, just because a lot of the time you're listening to a teacher, and maybe the only time you really have to interact with other people is when you're in a breakout room. So just finding those different ways, whether it's like through clubs, which might be different groups of people, or like through group chats you make with yourself or with other people from your classes. You'll just have other ways to communicate with people and try to make some friends.
I think adding on to that, like social media definitely plays a big role. I know for physics, I didn't really know too many people in my class. And there was one day where like the Zoom wasn't working. So I DM'd somebody in my class, and then you kind of start a conversation, and then that's how you kind of work your way up to making friends in your classes.
Also, be like confident and reach out to people, because everyone's in the same boat and everyone wants to make friends this year too. So.
Any other words of advice, Connor, Thomas? Because I know that this is, I mean, and I know that, you know, it's not, it's sort of, you know, maybe you don't necessarily, it's kind of hard to get the, you know, the ball rolling or the conversation started, or maybe you haven't really, because of the pandemic, some kids haven't had the chance to get together or keep up as much with their middle school friends, even if they've come over and, you know, they're sort of like, well, what am I going to do? Or, you know, how do I kind of broaden my circle or have some different people, or maybe they don't live near you. And so it's really hard to see them.
I think that what Neha was saying about confidence, I think that it's really important to just be confident and reach out, especially in breakout rooms. I know that those can be super awkward, but sometimes if you just take the time to be confident and have a conversation with the people in there, you have great conversations and ultimately end up making friendships. And hey, if you guys don't, you know, connect in that breakout room, it's not the end of the world, you know, but you're still buying into an opportunity that could get you a great friendship.
Yeah, like Sophie was saying, I think a lot of people don't participate in breakout rooms, and I think if there should be more confidence in speaking up in breakout rooms, especially if you're trying to make new friends. I think that would be the easiest way, like online, to do it, is through breakout rooms, because that's the only time where you can only talk with like only students. I think that's the best time.
Yeah, like what I would say is, like, if you ever find yourself in doubt, like if you should make that group chat or you should reach out to somebody, if you're ever in doubt, just do it. What's the worst that could happen? And if it fails, you'll still live. And if it works, then you have a great connection with somebody else.
Right. Well, let me ask you now, because one of the reasons that you all are thrown together is because you are all in school to learn something. So we'll turn to a few school-related questions, which is, first of all, when should you go to your teacher for help? And this seems like kind of an odd question, but now it's really, given the time constraints in Zoom, it's hard to ask questions in class. And even the Wednesday sessions are a little odd. So what's your best advice for when and how to do that?
I would say, I guess I sort of have two answers. One, I'd say don't be afraid to email your teachers. At the beginning of the school year, they definitely went over some email etiquette things. So make sure to be courteous and everything. But your teachers are definitely happy. Even, they might not get back to you for a day or two if they're super busy, but they're definitely happy to answer a question then. But also, I think Wednesdays, if you don't exactly have a question, then it might not be the best to go to an office hour session. But if you think that you can form a better bond with the teacher, or if you actually have a math question or something, and I think that Wednesdays are a great opportunity, especially for upperclassmen working on letters of recommendation, relationships. I think that going on a Wednesday or something can help sort of your teacher get to know you a little better in a smaller setting than in a 30-person setting.
I also think that while you shouldn't be afraid to reach out to your teachers, your friends or people that not even, I know it might be more difficult for freshmen, but if you're just reaching out to people, especially in group chats of people who you have classes with, that can be very helpful to learn from them. I can't count the amount of times that someone in my classes has explained a math problem I didn't understand to me, or helped me remember that I had a test the next day. So I think your friends and your peers can be a huge resource, and you shouldn't count them out before you go to your teacher too.
I agree, but also school, especially the higher level classes, are moving super fast. So I would say any time you have a question, don't wait for before the test. Email your teacher, private chat them, and don't be afraid to ask your questions during the Zoom as well. Because from what I've heard, teachers want engagement. They feel like they're talking in empty boxes, and they want you to ask questions. And I've also heard they're kind of lonely in office hours. So even if you want to just go ask one question and talk, they're open to that.
Another thing I would add would just to be make sure maybe on a weekend to go through my MCPS and look at each class, even though initially it's very confusing, but I would just go through each section and make sure that you're aware of the best way to contact your teacher, because I know a lot of the teachers have two emails for school, one that's .org and one that's .net, and some teachers prefer to get an email to one versus the other because they don't check the other as often. So I would just maybe sit down for half an hour and go through and just make sure you know the best way to contact your teacher, and also just if they have a certain way that they want you to ask questions, or what if their office hours are changing or anything like that.
Great. As the parent of two BCC students, I can say these are great pieces of advice. One other thing that's come up that you all are maybe a little bit more familiar with, and having been in this system for a while, is that teachers post their assignments in all kinds of locations. And it used to be even more complicated because there was Google Classroom, my MCPS, there was a lot of other stuff going on, but some post them in the slides section, some in the discussion section, some somewhere else. And do you have any good strategies for kind of keeping track of what's where and making sure that you've actually turned in the assignments that you've worked on hard on time and all of that? What's the best way to keep on top of that?
If you're someone like me who's pretty list oriented and likes to have things, if I write them down, I'll remember them. I would 100% say keep an agenda, or even just sticky notes on your wall with reminders of the things that you need to do. And then what I do is I go through each section. I say, okay, for this class, what was in modules, what was in discussions, what was in this, and just work your way through it. And I know it might seem a little bit tedious, but as the weeks keep going on, I think that you're going to start knowing your teachers more and understanding more how they understand Canvas and how they are used to posting their assignments. And ultimately, it's going to all kind of fall into a routine for you.
Piggybacking off of that, I think a lot of teachers, well, like teacher to teacher, they might vary a lot in how they post their assignments. Usually, like your math teacher will put, or like depend, just as an example, like they'll have their spot of posting their assignments, but your history teacher might be putting it in a different spot. So like Sophie said, like the more you get used to where each teacher's doing it, you'll kind of just remember where that is. But also, I also use like the reminders app in my phone just to instead, because we never actually got an agenda this year. So that's just my way of writing stuff down without having to like use a paper thing, if that's another option.
I agree with both of those. And in addition to an agenda book, I keep just a regular like notebook, which has everything in it. So on the first week of school, I wrote down which teachers post where, like what their individual styles tend to be. I write down like just thoughts, plans, anything that happens at school that I don't want to have to remember. I put in a notebook in addition to an agenda book. So I've learned that works really well if anyone wants to try.
Yeah, I think adding on, what's really helped me is like doing short-term lists and long-term lists. So like in my agenda book, I keep like what's due tomorrow. So I have like all the things I need to do. Sorry about that. Things I need to do for the next day, like study for a quiz or something. And then on like a more long-term, like weekly assignments list, I write down like what's due when. So I like know how to plan it out and I don't put it off until the night before or not know about it until the night before.
I would just say one last thing is like my MCPS classroom has a dashboard tab, and I like that tab because like it has like all your assignments that are due and like not split up by class, but like by day. So you can sort of see like when things are due, but still like I will get a notification that like my teacher has posted something and I'll look in like every tab of classroom and I won't be able to find it. So like if you are confused, like definitely not alone. I think that's still something that like teachers are working through too, like exactly where to post things. So I would just say like try like another tab if you can't find it, like it might be in files or modules or something like that.
Or even just email your teacher. Honestly, this morning I could not find one of my assignments for the life of me. And I emailed my teacher and they're 100% forgiving because they're not the best with technology either. Maybe they didn't publish it, maybe they put it in the wrong class. So just honestly, just reach out. Teachers are human too. They're not going to, yell at you for not being able to find an assignment. And then also just, I think one more important thing to mention is there's a difference between locating your assignments and locating your resources. And I think that sometimes they post them in assignments, but just make sure you know where your extra help is on Canvas, because using your resources is one way that you can easily get through high school.
Also, just one small thing is I would make sure that for assignments, you include the time at which the assignments are due, because even I learned that some of my teachers have assignments that are due at 9 in the morning and some have them due at the start of their class and then some are due at 11:59. So I think it's really important just to make sure you add that in just so you don't accidentally miss a deadline or something.
Yeah, definitely what Laila said. And also, like, talk to your friends about it. I know for math, I was confused whether something was optional or not optional. And so I talked, like, once you talk to your friends about it, either they know or they don't know. This time it happened that they didn't know, so we emailed the teacher. But yeah, go to them first. A lot of times they'll know. They'll be like, oh, this assignment's in Google Drive, in modules, or in Canvas, whatever. There's a lot of places. But they can really be a good resource too.
Honestly, I don't envy all of you having to find these things. I have like a hard enough time myself. I guess that's why I'm in the teacher category. Like I'm not quite sure where I put it. But anyway, it's a little different this year, and BCC is a little different because if you aren't aware, the classes change in the middle of the year. So you switch to a different teacher, and that when you got your schedule, it actually this year had who you're changing to. If you're sometimes you don't change, but most of the time you change to a different teacher second semester. But we all know that teachers are human, we're human. Some teachers are a great fit for us. When I was going to school, some teachers were a great fit for me. A lot of my math teachers were not a great fit. And what are good strategies if you don't have a good fit with your teacher, or you feel that your teacher just kind of doesn't really get you?
Well, from what I've gotten, a lot of the time, people in different, like the same class but with different teachers, you can go to them for advice because they're learning the same things just differently, so they might understand it better from their teacher than you are.
I would also say go to like any kind of to trusted adult at BCC. I feel like I have some teachers I don't get along with great, and then some I'm very close to. And sometimes when I'm having issues in a class with a teacher which just doesn't understand me, I lean on a different trusted adult for support. But also, I think just being very kind to teachers who you feel you don't get along with, very respectful, and you tend to win them over by the end of it.
Also, if you're not able to get the support you need in class, BCC has a program called Peer Partners, which is a free tutoring service. And it's really underused. There's a lot more tutors than people who want to be tutored. So I'd highly recommend if your child is not getting along with their teacher, you can go to, there's a ton of people who need SSL hours and they're willing to tutor. Or the NHS or any of the other honor societies also offer tutoring.
I was just gonna say, like in semester 2, if you don't get along with your new teachers, you could always email your other ones and be like, oh, I don't understand this, like, could you help me out? That could also work.
100%. I agree with Shanela. And there's a program at our school called TAP, which is, I'm sorry, I don't know what it stands for the life of me. I've tried.
Time for academic progress. I don't know.
Thank you. But it's a program where after school, or I'm sure they'll have office hours soon, teachers from the same department will be there to give you the support you need. So if you're not doing so, if you're a little bit confused on a topic in science and you don't get along with your science teacher, there's going to be another science teacher at the school who will be there after school for you to ask any homework questions or just anything you really need. And that goes for almost all the subjects at BCC.
What are some of the things that parents could do that might be helpful during virtual school? And what are some things that are really not helpful during virtual school that it might be good to dial back on?
Well, I know personally that, well, some of my parents both like are very aware of the technology, like Canvas and all that stuff. So I know that when grades get put in for me, my dad will always come to me and be like, oh, I saw you got this in APES in Canvas. And I just think that it's easier just to lay off a little bit about specific grades. Like I think test is one thing, but a lot of the points are a lot smaller given that we're online and teachers know that students won't be turning in assignments on time always. So I just think that unless you think this kid is really struggling in the class, that it's not really worth bringing up, just because I know a lot of students are really stressed, especially upperclassmen, about college and about taking new higher level classes. So I just think that not being super like pushy about assignments and deadlines and trying to let kids be a little more independent is a good idea.
On that note, I think that trust your kids. Trust your kids that by the end of the first semester, by the end of the first month, by the end of the year, that they're going to be in a position, in a routine that they've built, that they're comfortable with. And I think that that's a big part of high school, is developing that own personal routine. And high school isn't just about the classes you're taking and those getting harder and you having more homework. It's about the community that you're building. It's about kind of finding your place and that kind of stuff. And I think that often the students need to do that on their own. So yeah, just, trust your kids. And if you show them that you trust them, they're going to be a lot more confident in all the decisions they make in making that routine.
And I think one positive thing that my parents have done, I know parents get a lot on the listserv, and sometimes they get notifications like about scheduling and about like a certain schedule for a specific day, like map testing and stuff that we don't necessarily get emails for like through our school account. So I think it's really helpful. Like I know my mom and dad like forward those emails to me or just let me know like, oh, hey, you have a different schedule. So I think that is helpful. I mean, obviously not to do it too much, not to forward every single email, but I think that's been super helpful.
Something I would say parents could do is just make sure like your child has like an adequate workspace. Like my sister, she didn't have she started online at UMD this year, and she was hoping to stay on campus, but now she can't. And so she was working out of her closet on a shelf. It was like a strength of wax scenario. So I'd say make sure your kid has a good space where they can sit down and actually work on assignments. So we got her a space in the basement, kind of on a desk. So maybe it's a dining room table, maybe it's in the kitchen somewhere, but make sure they have a space where they can sit down and actually work on their assignments.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd also say that communication is really important. Like to talk to your kids about when they have tests, ask instead of talking about maybe grades, maybe say what can I do to make it easier for you to succeed academically. Yeah.
I think that another thing to mention with the workspace that Connor was talking about is also we're kind of all stuck at home because of quarantine. And so I think that making sure that everyone is mindful and that this doesn't just go for students, but also parents, but also students being mindful of their parents working. But I would just say that making sure that you're not, being the loudest person in the house when your student is trying to take a test over Zoom. I know that distractions are something that, you learn to deal with, but at the same time, we're all cooped up in a house and very tensions are on high. So just be mindful of that and make sure that you guys are being respectful of that.
I agree. To talk to each other about the important things. Like say I had a Spanish test and it was on Zoom, so I couldn't move because the camera was on and my dog was barking and my dad was on a conference call and I got so mad, but it was my fault for not telling them that at that time I needed to take the test. So make sure to communicate with them.
Yeah, I think all of that is really important. I'm happy to know that the listserv is helpful for you guys occasionally too. That's nice for me. And I will just say as a parent, I'm actually sitting in one of my son's classroom spaces. And so I leave at, I do my work before, and then at the end of the day, I might be back in here, but most of the time you're actually gonna find me, if it's not horrible out, working on the porch. So they each have space to do stuff. And, if I have calls or I have other things, I'm not stepping on their space. It's a real challenge, but I figure I can bundle up and make it on the porch for a long time, I hope. So anyway, okay, I see a couple of things in here. I hope some of you have some experience with the Link Crew, either as, I know that the 10th graders do because they were Link Crew-ees last year, and maybe some of the seniors were Link Crew leaders. There's a lot of, BCC refers often to Link Crew, and I'll just try to preface this by saying Link Crew is an initiative that started last year, and the idea was, because we have two middle schools, Silver Creek and Westland, coming together, they wanted to find a way to connect the students that wasn't just in the classroom or through clubs, to have more organized activities, and hopefully to give them some connection to upperclassmen. And I can step outside and just say this as a parent of a ninth grader last year, that Link Crew was not a smashing success. I think my ninth grader, his crew left him in the gym and went off, and he texted me and he's like, I'm alone in the gym. Do you want to come get me? And I did. It has been reimagined. It has been reworked. It is hopefully going to move more smoothly this year, but you know, honesty is always the best policy. And they will include students who are not just ninth grade, or there will be something for them to try to integrate them, because I see a question on that. But if any of you can talk a little bit about Link Crew and what's going on and what sort of support you hope it'll provide. I think it's gonna like kind of get up and running in the beginning of October. But I know that it's sort of day to day to day to day.
I was never a part of Link Crew, but a lot of my friends were, and just I kind of got the same idea that you did, that it didn't really work that well. I think you can't really force relationships. Maybe it'll work better this year, but I think the best way to try to know more about BCC and get to know people of different age groups would be clubs and sports. It's just a better avenue.
Last year, we kind of did some feedback among the freshmen to kind of ask and say, you know, why didn't it work the way that we really wanted it to? And as a person who was a part, like I was in the program as a freshman last year, what the feedback was generally that we wanted it to be a little bit more a resource for students to get that extra help that they need, rather than what they tried to make it, which was like bonding activities and stuff that kind of, it wasn't a waste of time, but it felt like very uncomfortable. And so as I can tell you that by the end of the year, there were changes made to the program that were very beneficial. Like we started talking about getting involved with AP and IB classes and that kind of stuff. And I think that we're going to see a lot more of that this year, and knowing about those things freshman and sophomore year is so important, because those are decisions you're going to need to make junior and senior year when there's stress on you. And so kind of being able to know about those beforehand is something that I'm actually really grateful Link Crew started to introduce to us last year.
Great. Well, that's so, yeah, it will be. I think they're looking for it this way too, to just make sure people get introduced and have some other connection points, and hopefully some upperclassmen and stuff. And it's just another way to kind of meet and chat in smaller groups, which takes us to a question that came up in the chat, which is a lot of students don't participate in the breakouts. And do you guys have any experience with your teachers assigning group work that you would get together and do independently at home? Is that happening in the upper, you know, in 10th, 11th, and 12th among groups, or is it still very much like you do your own work and, you know, and there's not sort of cross collaboration or collaborative projects?
A majority of the collaborative work we do is on Zoom during the class. I think that teachers are aware that the situation at home is different for every student. So I think assigning work in groups at home can be difficult, because I know a lot of my friends work after Zoom and I have sports that I go to after school. So I think that most of the work that we do together is through breakout rooms, which is kind of like sucky in some ways, because sometimes it's random and then sometimes you get stuck with the same kids. But I think it's worth just kind of like starting something and just like reaching out in the Zoom and just like saying one thing, or like trying to turn your camera on if it's off, just something like that can kind of like start a conversation.
I know in my APUSH class, we had a group presentation the first week with like random people from the breakout rooms. And, you know, like some people in the breakout rooms, they just want to sit there, their camera off, mic muted, and they don't want to participate. But with this presentation, I think my teacher, he knew that we didn't really have time to, you know, sit there muted and not participate. So that presentation kind of forced us to communicate to each other, you know, deadlines and work. And it was really interesting to do that over a Zoom setting. And it wasn't comfortable all of the time, but I think it was a good experience.
I did a similar project, and my group actually met outside of school to finish that project. And I think that if you're given any assignment in a breakout room, even if it's not like necessarily a group assignment, reach out, get the contact information of the people in the breakout room, because you never know when you're going to be stuck or you need a little bit of help, or maybe you just want to reach out and talk. You don't have to reach out and talk to them, but at least you have their contact information if you want that. So that's what I would say you should do, because I still talk to the group that I did that presentation with.
Great. I have another really interesting question. How, if you don't necessarily know the people who are in your classes, like say they were, you're a Westland kid or a Silver Creek kid and you've got kids from the other school, or you're also in a class that has mixed grade levels, maybe you've got some 10th graders or whatever, how do you form a group chat, or how do you get in touch with these kids? Because there isn't a class roster. I mean, you obviously see the name on the screen, but you have no contact information. So what do you do?
Okay, well, I can say something that I didn't have any friends in my POE class, it was engineering, and I actually talked to my friend Sophie, and I was like, do you know anyone? And then she gave me Connor's Snapchat, and we talked, and we're both in the same engineering class, and that's how I got into contact with other people.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Shanayla. Asking your friends, they might know them. That is 100% the way to go. I think that there's a little bit of difficulty, and I wish that, I'm not sure if I'm the only one experiencing this, but some teachers don't turn on the chat feature in the Zoom. And that can be a bit of a problem, because often if I'm, sometimes the chats start great conversations and then you start private chats, and then you ask for contact information, that kind of stuff. So maybe try using those chats. But if you can't, and like you said, there's just a list of names, you can do, I would even say Insta can be very helpful. Just look up their name on Instagram. Maybe you'll find them.
Yeah, and also in a less of a like big group setting, in breakout rooms, it would be easier to ask for people's like contact information. They might not feel as like, I don't know, not as scared in front of the whole class if it's with like 2 other people. So in breakout room situations, I feel like that would be a better way to ask if you don't know anybody.
Yeah, regarding the chats though in Zooms, I know that at the end of a Zoom, a teacher gets a report of all of the chats, both the chats that are to everyone and the ones that are private. So I would just be a little weary about like chatting during class, because I know a lot of teachers are very like keen on engagement, and I think some teachers would take it a little like personally if you were chatting during class, but I think breakout rooms are definitely like a very good option.
The other thing is that we actually do have a directory which has an app, A to Z directory, and you can download the app, and if people verify their information, you can, at the very, very worst, find not necessarily the kids' contact information, but the parents. And I will say that I have had at various points in time, parents reach out to me looking for, just like it's like a big flashback to elementary school or something, looking for my own kids' contact information for their kids. So if all else fails, that is not the most unembarrassing option, but an option. Okay, so what are some tips you have for managing your work and your time? And this is actually, Laila, as you brought up, like you have sports, kids have work, some other your friends have work. I mean, even though you guys are quarantined and stuck at home, your lives are still super busy. And what's some good advice that you have about that?
Well, I find that like when I look at an assignment, since now that everything is online, it's really easy to just take an overview of the assignment and kind of figure out how long you think it would take. So now, like when I plan out my days, I kind of go by which assignments I know will take longer, and I try and do those right after school and just kind of knock them out, or even during breaks in between classes or at lunch. I think since lunch is now 75 minutes, it's really easy to get work done then. But I think just kind of planning out your day, and instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to do these 2 things today, try and like give a specific time. And I just kind of throw my phone on the other end of the room so that it's like out of my way and I don't distract myself, and just get it done as soon as you can, because I feel like work piles up, and since it's virtual, it's kind of hard to like see a physical workload. But just kind of like knocking it out early is just, I think that's the best way to go about it.
I agree a lot with Laila. I think you don't want to leave work to the last minute. Like it's really easy just to be like, oh, I'm gonna have time for this later. Or, oh, I really don't want to do this. But you're gonna feel a lot better if you just try to get it done. And like another thing new with this school year is just that since we have AB days and then also Wednesday, I think you could like definitely utilize Wednesdays and like your off day for your A classes to try to get work done. And just like budget your time well between when your work is due and when you actually have class, because you might not feel like doing your Spanish work on the same day you also sat in the Zoom for Spanish for an hour, but you have the next day and your work is probably not going to be due until the next Spanish class.
Also, so something I've enjoyed using with the new schedule is that hour of time in the morning, 8 to 9 a.m. has been so great. I've been doing, like, I've been scheduling my club meetings then, and everyone in the club hates me, but it's super useful, and it gets stuff like that out of the way so that you have more time in the afternoon or the evening.
I would also say, like, definitely take breaks. Like, right after a day of Zoom, like, I could not go back to, like, working, because all, like, the work is, like, usually on the computer. So I'd say, like, go for a walk, like, right, like, eat a snack. Like, I don't think, like, you're most productive if, like, right after a day of school, like, you go right back to, like, writing an essay on your computer. So I'd say, like, there are definitely, like, more important things than, like, getting your, like, definitely get your Spanish homework done, but like getting your Spanish homework done like the second you're off of Zoom. So I think that like there's like productivity is a big focus always, but like especially with being online and like school and life sort of being blurred, like take some time to like relax or just like do something that is not school or on the computer even.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Devlin. Like at the beginning of the year, I was like, I'm going to use every single 15-minute break to do my work. I'm going to use lunch. I'm going to do all my work then, so I don't have anything after school. That obviously didn't work too well. I just like using those 15-minute breaks as just like kind of a break from the screen. Sometimes I just like literally lay in my bed if it's early in the morning and just take 15 minutes for yourself. And then I find that if I use those breaks like for myself, then after school, even though I might have more than if I had done stuff during those breaks, that I'm more efficient at it. And also what Laila said, definitely put your phone somewhere else. That's a huge distraction to me, even if it's like next to me and I'm not even using it, like, I don't know, out of sight, out of mind kind of. But yeah, I definitely recommend.
Also, this one might not work for everyone because it's more like computers and Zooms, but sometimes when I like just don't feel like doing work, me and my friends will sit on a Zoom call like in silence with the mic on and the camera on and just work, even if it's not the same thing, because we like hold each other accountable.
I would say at the end of the day, just make sure you're not stressing yourself out with the workload, because like I said earlier, we are all stuck in the same house. So as Devlin was saying, take a walk, take a break. And if you can't get to this assignment right now, put your mental health first, and make sure that that's where it needs to be, because you're not going to be able to do productive work if you're not in the right headspace. So just get to that point first.
I think all excellent pieces of advice for the adults as well. You guys have all been terrific. This is why I always say that, like, I am just overwhelmed and so impressed with the students at BCC. I think that they are outstanding. I want to just have you each take a crack at one last question, which is, what is one thing that you would change about BCC and one thing that you absolutely would not change about BCC?
I would say one thing I would not change about BCC, we touched on this a few times during this, but like definitely the clubs. Like people are super passionate about their clubs. I remember Miss Dean, who's our SGA and club sponsor, said that she had never gotten more emails in her life than from people about their clubs when she sent out info about registering your club. So I think that people definitely do. They really think that they have a lot of respect and their clubs are really important and we try to include them in a lot of different programs. But then I guess something that I would change that we can continually improve upon is I think that like a lot of the students and parents definitely saw like our work with discrimination and sexual harassment and like at BCC along with like a bunch of other Montgomery County like public schools, but definitely at BCC there's still work that we try to engage with daily with making sure people feel safe and know how to report discrimination. And I would definitely say just like as an addendum, if you do ever want to like report bullying or harassment, like know that's like totally a valid option, like totally something that I don't want to say like smile upon, but like definitely like discrimination is not like something that we want to ever say is okay. And like harassment and things like that are things that we have avenues to report and we're improving upon those avenues, but definitely look into that, go to trusted adults for support and just know that like that is something that we're working on.
I agree. I think what I would change about BCC is our school is very divided along racial and socioeconomic lines. And I feel like that's something that's changing now. And students are kind of leading into a different kind of, I don't know, era at BCC, full of more acceptance and inclusivity. But what I would not change is the amount of kindness and support at BCC is so amazing. Like you have people backing you, have people there for you constantly.
One thing that I want to mention that I would change at BCC is that I go to camp and I have a lot of friends from like around the country, and what I've learned from them is that BCC, unlike a lot of other schools, has like an incredibly competitive atmosphere, especially once you get into like 11th and 12th grade with the IB program and with AP classes. And I really think you don't need to compare yourself to other students and what their grades are, what classes they're taking, because pretty much if you're going to BCC, you're already ahead of the curve, I think, compared to what I know. So you just don't feel make sure you're not being self-conscious about the classes you're taking or the grades you're getting. It's a very, very smart school. And this is like kind of silly, but the thing that I wouldn't change about BCC is that when we're in person, we have open lunch, and it's just great being able to go into Bethesda or sit on the lawn or just sit in the hallways with your friends, because just a much better way to have meals.
Similar to what Gabe said, I think one thing I would change is the competitive environment at BCC. I think it's not really pushed on by like teachers and faculty, but I think a lot of the students, it's like a very stressful environment, especially I remember going into junior year and thinking that I wouldn't even get into any schools just because like just listening to everyone compare their grades and their standardized test scores. But I really think that if you just kind of take a step back and you pay attention to the resources counselors give, but also reach out into the different clubs and different groups. I know that there's a counseling office at BCC for college. I mean, obviously we're virtual now, but I know that's a great resource and there's easy like people you can talk to and teachers. And one thing I wouldn't change, this is also kind of cheesy, but the Barron Pride at BCC, I think there are a lot of divides like racially, sexually, in BCC, but I think when we go out at football games, soccer games, even basketball games, just all of those sports, I think the environment is really positive, and that kind of also leads into pep rallies and other events. And so I think that that environment is very positive, and even though given all the stuff that's been going on recently, I think that there are still positives about BCC and they just shouldn't be overlooked.
I'd agree with that competitive kind of aspect of school. I think that things can get pretty stressful, and the mental health supports at school can always improve. And so that's what I would say, just making sure that and you can do this yourself. There's a lot of ways that you can work on your own mental health, but also just knowing that there are resources at school and that those resources are getting better and better, where you can go if you're feeling anxious or stressed or sad. Just those resources are there. And then also something that I just wouldn't change about BCC is the staff. I think that there's a lot, if you connect with the staff, there's a lot of staff who are willing to connect with you and are really a part of the community and go to every BCC event and are willing to spend their entire lunch or even after school talking to you about random stuff. It doesn't even need to be your class. So I'd say forming those bonds that I've made are really important, and I wouldn't change that about BCC because we have some pretty great staff if you get to know them.
I totally agree with Sophie on the mental health thing at BCC. Like, the counselors could use some work on being able to handle mental health and stuff. But something I wouldn't change at all about BCC is diversity night. I've been going since like I was in 6th grade maybe, and every single time it's been such a good experience with the dancers and like people sharing their stories. It's like the best night, honestly.
Yeah, I think definitely what Sophie said about the staff, like the teachers here are so amazing. There's so many of them. I think more of my teachers this year are like have like doctor like PhDs than don't. Not saying that teachers that don't are any less, but I'm just saying like we have really great teachers. They're really passionate about their subjects, and it's like really good to see, and they're definitely willing to help out. So
Thomas, Connor?
So going off, the thing that I like most about BCC is, I think Laila said it, the Baron Pride when at games is incredible. Like going to basketball, football, and like soccer games. It's so great to see that everybody, even if like during other points we're not as connected, but in that one situation, we're so connected and we're so like together. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, piggybacking off that, like, on Spirit Weeks or like Spirit Days for specific, like Blue and Gold Day, people go like all out, and like they got like blue face paint on, they got like half their face gold. It's just really cool to see the amount of pride people have about BCC. One thing I would change though is I feel like there are a lot of I would like applaud BCC for their mental health resources. But I feel like a lot of people, they just don't know that they exist or don't know how to get to them, or they just don't like the stigma of going to sources of strength. They don't want they're afraid of what people might think about them if they go there. So I think there's still work to be done in terms of making sure those resources are available to everybody and that they're normalized within the community.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. And I wish you all a great fall semester. And I really appreciate this. It's unbelievably helpful. And thank you for taking the time and for helping make it a better experience for everybody else. And thank you for all your work to make a better BCC in the community, because whatever the parents do, I mean, really, it's the students are like the heart and soul of the school, and they do so much. And all the parents I know are really, really appreciative of you guys. So thank you and have a great night. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much. Definitely, if anyone ever has suggestions for the SGA, you can email us at bccschoolwide@gmail.com or let Ms. Winik know and she can definitely pass on. But thank you for having us. We're super happy to be here.
I believe that actually class of 2024 SGA elections just opened up, or am I wrong about the polls? Maybe they've closed, but make sure that your students vote for their officers. That's really important. And thank you, Ms. Winik, for organizing this.
We also have a school-wide BCC Instagram. It's just at school-wide BCC. So you feel free to DM any questions you have that can just quickly be answered by me or Devlin or anyone else.
Yeah, I love the Instagram accounts. I highly recommend your kids follow them. They're really great, and they're great sources of information, and they manage them really, really well. So they are outstanding and really worth doing. So anyway, thank you all. Have a great night.